And now, for the week of August 28th, Adobe Photoshop TV is on the air.
Welcome to Adobe Photoshop TV from the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. And here's your hosts, the Photoshop guys, Scott Kelby, Dave Cross, and Matt Klaskowski.
Welcome, everyone, to another low-maintenance episode of Adobe Photoshop TV, brought to you by the National Association of Photoshop People. Professionals. Yeah, that's it.
Them.
NAP. N-A-P-P. NAP. The people who bring you Photoshop People magazine. No, it's Photoshop User magazine. This is it right here, Photoshop User magazine.
This week's episode is brought to you by iStock Photo, CDW, DLO, and Logitech.
Well, welcome back, everybody. My name is Scott Kelby, and joining me, as always, representing the fine country of Canada, Mr. Dave Cross.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you once again.
Yes, it's the mellow episode. Welcome, everyone, to a Zen-like episode of Adobe Photoshop TV. Hey, we're flying the missing man formation. Mr. Klaskowski is still out this week. He will be back next week because next week is Photoshop World. We'll be at Photoshop World. We're going to be doing a live broadcast.
That's right,
Dave?
yeah.
Tell them about it, Dave.
Well, I got to say, we did that last year. We had so much fun.
It was a blast.
It really was.
It was not a good episode, but we had fun.
We had fun, and that's the important thing. But this year, I think we'll get a slightly larger table, though. Last year, we were jammed, three of us on a small little table. But we actually invite everyone who's at the show to sit in the audience, and we just do it live, much like we do here, but with people watching.
With people watching, yes. So, but it's going to be a lot of fun, so we hope that if you're coming to Photoshop World, and by the way, there is still time to come. It's next week. So if you'd like to come to Photoshop World, we invite you to come. You'll be there with thousands of your Photoshop friends,
right,
and would love to see you there. It is go to photoshopworld.com. And don't forget, if you are not a NAP member and you come to Photoshop World, included in your Photoshop World registration fee is a full one-year NAP membership, including a subscription. That's animation. To Photoshop User magazine, the rotating...
That's special effects right there.
Special effects, rotating magazine. Well, we're happy to see you guys here again after last week's show. We weren't sure that if anybody would ever watch again. So we are glad to see you. We've got all kinds of tips and tutorials and contests and cool stuff coming up. And one of those is about to start right now. I brought a tutorial here. In fact, it's tutorializing as we speak. I've got a product shot that we're going to zoom right into here. And this is not a color correction effect, okay? So let's say that we have the photo kind of basically color corrected. It's a shot of a Canon Rebel taken by my buddy Dave Gales. And what I want to do to is I want to actually relight this photo using a number of different Photoshop techniques. The first one I'd like to do is I like to darken in the center of the lens a little bit. We're going to open up the old layers palette here, and the first thing we're going to do is I want to select this the lens. I think that's the word for it, isn't it, Dave?
That's pretty
I
good
want to select the lens, yes.
The round thing in the middle.
Selecting round objects is it's harder than it looks. You think, oh, how easy would that be? There's a round selection tool. You just click and select it. No. Let's just try over here. No. But there is a trick to it. Number one and I would recommend starting from the middle, where you think the middle is. Hold the Shift key so it's actually round, but also hold the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC. That way your circle grows out from the middle. Now let's see if it gives us a perfect fit. It's not bad.
Pretty darn close.
But if it's off any, all you do is you take your thumb, put it on the space bar, and then you can move it around and get it just where you want it. So you can readjust it, get it just like you like it, and that's the big secret to making circular selections, is being able to move it as you drag so you can get, boom, right on the money. All right, so there's a little selection tip. Snuck in. All right, now we're going to put that up on its own layer, okay? So to put that up on its own layer, I'm going to press Command-J, or on PC, Control-J, and you can see I have just that part of the lens up on its own layer. Now, I want to darken that in. I want to make the inside dark. So let's go to Levels. So I'll go Image Adjustments and choose Levels. I accidentally chose something else, didn't I? Here we go. Levels. There we go. So we're going to bring that up. And I'm just going to, and all we're working on is the center of the lens here. So let's just darken it in a bit here. There we go. It's there we go. Make it nice and rich and dark. Something that's a little too dark there. Something like that, perhaps. And then we're going to increase the highlights a little bit. Of course, this increases the shadows, makes them darker. This side it makes the highlights brighter by dragging to the left. So I'm going to brighten that up nice and crisp and bright. Now, the only problem I would see here is, although it did make the area around the lens nice and rich and dark, as you can see before and after by turning off the layer, see? It did make the inside of the lens kind of dark. So I'm going to take that one step further. I'm going to do the same little selection trick. I'm going to hold the Shift key and the Option key. We're going to drag into the middle, and here's where I'm going to need that space bar. Watch. Hit the space bar like that. Move it over a little bit. Like maybe that. And then I'm just going to hit simply delete. So now you're seeing through that. I kind of made a little donut, so you're actually seeing through that to the original lens. So that way I was able to avoid darkening the lens and just darkening that outside. All right, I'm going to merge those two together by pressing Command E. It's kind of like flattening. Now, I want to create some highlights and shadows. There are highlights and shadows, as you can see. There's some highlight areas over here. Let me just get a tool you can actually see. Highlight areas over here and some shadow areas over here. I want to emphasize those and make them stand out more. So what we're going to do is, let me just go over here to the Layers palette and move it up and kind of up and out of the way a little bit. So we're not taking it. I'm going to duplicate the background layer, and we'll start by adding some highlights. So I'm going to switch the mode from normal to screen, which is going to basically super brighten the image. Watch. Okay, so now it's way, way too bright. So here's the original, and then with the screen layer on top, it's very, very bright. Now, you're going to hold the Option key on a Macintosh or the Alt key on a PC and click the layer mask icon and watch how it hides that bright version from view. That bright version is still there. We're still in that layer, but it's hidden behind this black mask. Now, the good thing about that is now I can selectively reveal just the highlight areas by going and getting a soft edge brush. I'll make it a little smaller, and I'm going to go into these areas. I'm just going to paint. Now, it's going to be too bright, but we're going to control that later. So let's just make some highlight adjustments here. Any place that we want to highlight, maybe like, look, that's kind of a highlight there, and then going straight down the camera body there. So we're just adding in some highlights kind of after the fact. And let's see, we can highlight right there in the middle a little bit. And just anywhere that you want. There is no rule. I mean, I'm looking where some of the highlights in the photo are, so obviously I'm cheating a little bit.
Can you have one right there?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Dave. Any other changes?
No, that's fine.
Okay, there we go. And maybe right there on the little...
Yeah.
Okay. You were looking for that, weren't you?
was.
Okay, so I added some little highlights in. And if I turn that layer off, you'll see where the highlights have been added. But it's too intense, and that's perfectly fine. That's what this opacity slider in the Layers palette is all about. Now I can lower that opacity, and think of that opacity as the highlight volume control. So now I'm just going to kind of go in here and lower this down and kind of put it where I want it. Maybe something more like that, so it's not so obvious. All right, so now I'm going to go back and let's duplicate the background layer again. All right, this time instead of making the image twice as bright, I'm going to go to multiply to make it really dark. And these are going to be our shadows. Now, I want to do the same trick. I want to hold the Option key on Mac, the Alt key on PC, and click right there on the layer mask icon. Now I'm hiding a version that's much darker behind a different black mask. Go grab the same brush. Now we're going to paint some of our shadows in over here, and maybe click up here and go straight down. Maybe add some shadows maybe over here. And let's see what else. There's some shadows over here. Any place that you think that you want to add some shadows. There. I'm just kind of clicking around here. And let's see where else. Maybe over here, a little bit of it there. And I'm just kind of haphazardly looking where some shadow areas were, and I'm kind of enhancing them. Okay, again, it's way too dark. So let's just back it off some. Like that, to where you just have a hint of it. So there's your highlights and your shadows. All right, now I'm going to duplicate this image. Actually, still a little dark on those shadows. All right, now I'm going to duplicate the image so you can see a before and after. So let's revert this so you'll see the original. Well, actually, the original would be back here, wouldn't it? And look how flat the lighting was. Hey, let's bring it down to size, crazy big. There we go. And then there's the after, the supercharged version. And I'm going to change the size so you can see them both. I actually lowered the opacity, lowered the size on this. I got them both the same size. Like that, so you can see a before and after. And I will just drag this is the, hey, there's the little ring there. There, here's the original version. Let's drag it on top so you can see a quick before and after. Okay, how long it took me to do that, Dave? Whew. All right, here we go. Put it on top. So here we go. There is the original before, and here's the after we have lit it our way. Now I lit that very quickly. Obviously, you can spend a little more time, but look, flat, fabulous, flat, fabulous, flat. Well, it looks retouched now that you can see the before and after. But if I had opened this as original photo, you wouldn't go, hey, that's been retouched, you know. So that's the little trick about it. There it is. So another way to relight your photos after the fact.
Nice. Now, the only thing that concerns me about that is, what if people don't have a picture of a camera? I guess that technique, you know, pretty much.
Yeah, it only works on photos of cameras.
Of a Canon Rebel, you know. So
it's very funny, Dave.
I say that only because some people, you know, they have to assist them in that leap to say you can use this technique for any photo.
Yes, it'll work for people. It'll work for appliances. If you have a toaster that really needs to be relit, it will work for that as well. No, but you know, Dave makes a really good point. Sometimes it's hard to think in different contexts. I've had people write in and say, "Hey, I really like that content." Like, you know, if I did something on a watermelon, people would write in and go, "Hey, I really like that tutorial. I don't have a watermelon to try it on, so I couldn't do it."
Can you send me your picture of your watermelon?
Can you send me the watermelon picture? No, I can't. All right. Hey, now we mentioned that Matt's not here this week, but that doesn't mean that Matt doesn't care. He cares deeply. In fact, he created a tutorial just for this show.
That's correct.
And here he is in absentia. Ooh. I never get to use that word because I don't know what it means. Here is Matt Kolaskowski in absentia, rocking the Howski. Said it twice in one show. Thank you.
All right, so since I can't be there, I thought it was only appropriate that I did Steam Part 2 for this tutorial, because I know how well the first one went over. So I'm just kidding. We're not going to do Steam Part 2. What we are going to do is take a look at one of my favorite tricks here for enhancing sunsets, or sunrises for that matter here. But in this example, it'll be a sunset, and just bringing out the colors to make them look a little more vivid. So it's actually pretty easy. And what we'll do is start off with grabbing the eyedropper tool, and I sample one of the outer areas of the sunset color. I don't go in toward the sunset yet, so I'll sample this blue area on the outside. And then let's go ahead and hold down the Alt key on the PC, the Option key on the Mac, and what you do is you sample a color more toward the sun here, like this pink area inside. Now that we have both of those colors sampled, what I want to do is boost the color of each one of these color swatches here. So I'm going to click on the foreground swatch, and all I'm going to do is just drag whatever color I have here toward that dominant blue color in the top right corner here. Not all the way over, just to make it a little more vivid and saturated with color. And then do the same thing for that background color here. Just take the pinkish color and drag it all the way over here toward red. So now I've got both of my colors here, and these colors are going to help me get more color out of the sunset. So what we want to do now is use an adjustment layer, and it's called gradient map. So if I click on the little yin-yang sign down here, we go to gradient map, and it grabbed my gradient that I had here. But if you click on this gradient picker, what I'm really using is this foreground to background gradient. It's the very first one. It looks like it's black and white here, but it really is just using your foreground and background colors. So you want to use that gradient and click OK. And it makes your photo look really, really bad at this point. But the way to fix it, change your blend mode from normal, go down to color. Look at that. Look at the colors that we now have in this photo. Now, it's too much. I'll be the first one to admit that. But what you do here is now just dial down your opacity to about 40 to 50%, depending on how much of that color you want to bring back in here. And now take a look. That's before, and that's after. So it's subtle, but it gets some extra color into that photo, and it really helps make the sunset look a lot more vivid. And to show you that it doesn't just work for this photo, I've got another photo here with different colors altogether. Okay, you can see it's more of a golden color, and now if we take a look, that's before, and then that's after. So you can look, and you can actually see in the opacity here, I had to dial that one up to about 70% because I was just not feeling it down here at 40, although I probably could have gotten away with about 50% here. But again, that's before and that's after. So now you've got a really nice way to boost the color of your sunsets. And all you need to do, again, add that gradient map adjustment layer, and then change the blend mode of the adjustment layer to color, and it'll really make those sunsets look nice.
All right, Matthew, thank you very much for that very cool tutorial.
Very nice.
We wish you were here, but next week, of course, we'll see you in Las Vegas,
That's right, constantly.
where Matthew will be only working and not having any kind of fun whatsoever.
You'll never see him in a casino, I can almost
You will
guarantee
not
that.
see Matt at the craps table at the Mandalay Bay at approximately 11 p.m. There's no way you'll see me and Matt, and probably Dave as well, around a craps table, because we do not believe in gambling. Tell him, Dave.
That's correct.
There we go.
We'll be in our hotel rooms practicing our classes.
Practicing classes.
Getting
There is
ready.
no way we'll be doing that, because Matt really likes to play craps. Okay. Stick around. We'll be right back. We've got a lot more things. We've got contests. We've got more tutorials. Dave Cross is here with a tutorial and lots more fun stuff coming right up, right here on Adobe Photoshop TV. Stick around. We are back. I'm Scott Kelby. Joining me, that guy,
Moi.
Dave Cross. Crossy, we call him. Don't call him that, though. Makes him very angry. Hey, Mr. Cross, or Crossy as we call him to make him angry, just gave birth to a new, not a child, all his kids are fully grown, but to a new cool magazine. It's a newsletter, I guess. It is for Adobe Illustrator users. It's called Adobe Illustrator Techniques. It's a brand new newsletter. It's actually launching at Photoshop World. And Dave is the editor-in-chief, right?
That is correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about this
I'd be
phenomenal
happy to
new
tell you about it. I'm
newsletter?
very excited about it for a number of reasons, not the least of which it is a newsletter, but it's also important it is an accompanying website. So there are lots of full-color how-to articles in the newsletter, but many of them have additional information on the website. So for example, if tutorials on using the gradient mesh tool, you can go to the website, and this is for subscribers only, to get additional information, as well as some more tutorials. There'll be a gallery where you can post your artwork, and lots of benefits if you are a subscriber. The tutorials, the gallery, discussion
So it's a subscriber
forums.
community.
Yeah, exactly. There will be a few portions that are available to the public, like the forum and a miniature version of the gallery where you can post a few images, but lots of great ideas, and we just felt there was just a need for more things in the Illustrator community. So, as Scott said, we'll be launching it at Photoshop World officially, but look very soon for the website to be launched, and we will let you know the day it is so you can go and check it out.
Yes, so it should be a lot of fun. Go check it out if you're into Adobe Illustrator, and I know that you are. Go check out Dave's new baby, Adobe Illustrator Techniques newsletter. Very, very cool stuff. Hey, speaking of Dave, it's time for Dave to do not an Illustrator tip, but a Photoshop tip. Dave, what have you brought us on this fine, fine day?
Here's what I have brought. It occurred to me that we're always talking about NAP and the benefits of being a NAP member, and you who watch Photoshop TV see the kind of things we do here. Well, on NAP, every week we add more tips to the website. So I'm going to show you a tip that I actually did on the NAP member website just to show you the kind of thing that we're doing on there. It's a little more specific because we have so many, we can get into these kind of things. And this is dealing with a situation like this where I have this photo I took. I kind of liked it, but in retrospect, this very noticeable shadow kind of takes away from the image. So I wanted to see if I couldn't eliminate it or at least make it a lot less obvious. So to start off, I'm just making a very rough selection with my lasso tool, and then I'm going to go to the select menu and choose color range. Now because I made a selection first, it's only going to look inside that selection. So I'm going to click on the color I want to select, and by moving this little slider called fuzziness, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what's happening, is the areas that are white is what's being selected, the areas that are black are not. So if I go too far, you see how it's starting to pick up some of the outside information. So I want to try and get kind of a nice happy medium between black and white, something like this. And if you notice any areas that are really have been selected elsewhere you don't want, you can certainly eliminate them. But for now, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to press Command or Control J to pop that up on a layer by itself. So you can see now I have that area right there on a layer. So now I'm going to try to see if we can't match these colors up. So I'm going to move the layers palette down here so you can really see this top area. I'm going to press Command or Control U for hue saturation. And basically just experiment. If I move the lightness slider, you can see it's starting to get lighter, but when you do that, then the color goes away a little bit. So if you increase the saturation with a bit of effort, you can usually get pretty darn close to the same type of color. You see that's very close to what it looked like before. So we're going to click OK. Now, the only thing that sometimes happens, and it certainly happened here, is that there was a bit of texture in that wall that's disappeared a little bit. So let's just deal with that, and here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to go back on my background layer and just make a little small selection of some of the texture. And then go to my Edit menu and choose Define Pattern. And we'll just go with that name. That's just fine. Now, I'm going to, first of all, make sure I deselect, make a new layer on top. And this is one of these things where when you first do this, it's going to look like you've made a horrible mistake because it's going to look, well, bad.
Dave, you've made a horrible mistake.
It'll look that way momentarily. Because if I go ahead and say, okay, fill with that pattern, I made a new layer, the entire layer gets filled with a pattern, of course, looks horrible because I've covered up my whole photo. But here's what we're going to do. Look at my layers palette. You can see I have this pattern layer I just made, and immediately below it is that area that I copied. So if I hold down the Option or Alt key, notice how the cursor changes. If I click between those two layers, that's created this thing called a layer clipping group. Let's zoom back down so you can see it. And basically now you see there's a pattern there. It's a little too noticeable. So we'll just lower the opacity, probably down quite a bit. I just want a bit of the texture showing so that it looks kind of the same. So that's looking pretty good there. But if you look closely here again, you can see a pretty noticeable dividing line where the shadow was. So basically all I need to do is, I want to keep everything as is, but just to give myself the ability to edit it, I'm going to hold down Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift on the PC E, and that's going to make a merged copy of all of these layers. And all that remains to do now is to take my Clone Stamp tool to try and cover up that noticeable line. And since the line is a little dark, I'm going to change the blend mode. It's actually already changed, but I'll just show you. In the options bar, I changed the blend mode to lighten. Then I just hold down Option or Alt and click to sample, and now as I start painting, you can see it's keeping all the texture and everything, but it's basically covering up that noticeable line that was there. Something like this. And you always have the option, if it's still looking a little too noticeable in some areas, then what I would do in that case, put it back to normal, change the opacity down to somewhere in the 40 to 50% range, probably with a slightly bigger brush, and just do a few little bits of cloning here and there just to try and make it look a little more as you want it. Now, let me just show you. Here's the original photo with a very noticeable shadow, and here it is afterwards with I don't know that anyone would look at that and say, well, you clearly removed the shadow that was there, because we've done a pretty nice job of blending the colors so they match with the wall underneath.
You, sir, are a Photoshop magician.
Well, we try.
Fantastic. Hey, speaking, I mean, as good as seeing Dave Cross is on video, imagine what it's like seeing Dave Cross live and in person. Let me tell you, it's legendary. It's awesome, awesome. And Dave, you're going on the road to places.
I am going to places, and there are several of them, which I'm desperately trying to remember.
What about Missouri? Going
Kansas City, Missouri.
Aren't you going there? Yes.
And then I'm going to Baltimore.
And
then Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado.
And you know what? PhotoshopSeminars.com will tell you all about it, because the website remembers clearly better than I do. See, they just tell me you're going somewhere, and I mark a little X in my calendar, and I always forget where it is. But once I'm there, nothing I love more than having people come and say, hey, I watch Photoshop TV. I'm coming here to see you live. It's great.
And if you've never seen Dave live, it's live. No, seriously, Dave is one of my favorite presenters. I can sit and I think Dave's a pretty funny guy in general. When Dave is doing a one-day seminar, it's like he's drinking. It's really, he's hilarious.
Don't tell the secrets.
But also, it's just a great, great day. So it's a lot of fun if you ever get a chance to catch Dave. Speaking of catching somebody, Bert Monroy, you ready for this?
Yes.
We're taking Bert to London. Bert Monroy is going to be at the Business Design Center in Islington, London, doing our one-day seminar, his creativity tour.
That's right.
So for the first time, we're taking it to the UK. Go check out PhotoshopSeminars.com for the latest information on Bert's tour, coming for the first time, and we're trying to get Mr. Crossy over there, but
Maybe.
we'll see.
October 27th is the date of Bert's seminar.
October 27th in London at the Business Design Center in Islington. Great place to go to see a Photoshop seminar, and Bert is absolutely a genius. And if you get the bonus of having Crossy there, well, you know, it's all the more better. Well, guys, we're going to take a short break. Stick around. We'll be right back. We've got the contest coming up. We've got more cool stuff. Stick around right here on Adobe Photoshop TV. We're back. I'm Scott Kelby. Joining me, Dave Cross.
Yes, sir.
And Matt Klaskowski, of course, is still on the road. He'll be back next week, but he'll be doing with us live at Photoshop World. Hey, it's time for the contest.
Yes, it is.
Because contests are a very important part of things because it's where we give away free stuff.
That's correct.
People like stuff that's free.
That's free, that they can win just by answering a usually somewhat simple question.
Somewhat simple.
Last week's somewhat simple question was, I showed you a dialog box for palette options for one of the many floating palettes in Photoshop. The question was, from which palette was that from? Anyway, that was bad grammar, but that was the question, and the answer was the Navigator palette. And as always, somebody won, and that somebody is this person. There they are. So congratulations for your fabulous package of prizes. And this week, we have more
We do. We
fabulous
have a
prizes.
stack of prizes, Dave. A stack. First, one lucky winner, and by one I mean 6 people. No, one person will win not only the best of Photoshop TV, the DVD, featuring myself, Matt Klaskowski, rocking the Howski, and Dave Krosky, rocking the
Thing.
Krosky. I'll just pass it over to you.
Thank you.
There's one. Next is my brand new book, the digital photography book, coming out sometime. Coming out this week, isn't it? It's actually going to be in bookstores here. There it is. You'll win that as well. You'll win a 1-year subscription to Layers Magazine, the greatest magazine ever published. Maybe not. But it's great. It's the how-to magazine for everything Adobe. If you use Adobe software, and I happen to know for a fact that you do, this magazine is for you. And last but not least, it's so new, we haven't even seen it. We don't have any idea what it looks like. The brand new, you get a 1-year subscription to the brand new Adobe Illustrator Techniques newsletter. So that's right here. Editor-in-Chief, Dave Cross. So,
And can I
one
just
lucky
add
person,
a subscription, which does include access to the subscriber-only
the
website.
subscriber-only website, where there's lots of
goodies.
videos and cool
Exactly.
stuff and things and good
So you
stuff.
can win all of that
Every bit of it.
just for
Combined
answering
into
this
one
question.
thing. A box arrives at your house. It's like this big. It's huge.
with 2 armed guards and.
And by the way, you don't have to be in the United States to win this.
Good point.
But we'll ship it anywhere in the world, including Canada.
That's right. Might take a few weeks, but it'll get there eventually.
Eventually.
So. All right. Well, keeping with last week's question where we showed you a dialog box, here's a warning dialog box that would happen if you're using the add noise filter, and you have to fill in the blank because you'll see a dialog box gives you a warning and there's a word missing. So you have to figure out what the missing, fill in the blank in the add noise filter dialog warning dialog box.
And by the way, if that dialog box comes up, you have the noise virus,
That's
I
correct.
believe.
And you have approximately 12 seconds to shut down your computer. No.
Or it reformats your
That's
drive.
not
No,
at
no,
all.
of course not.
So go
have
to
to reformat manually.
photoshoptv.com as we always suggest, and go to find the link for enter the contest. Enter once, and good luck to you.
Yes. Good luck to you. Hey, guess what? I have great news for you. The show's almost over. Every week we like to leave you with 3 projects to do between this week and next week, because what would life be like without 3 projects? Well, let's see. I've got mine written down here. The first one is our buddy Stephen Johnson, who is a legendary landscape photographer, has just written a book. It's called Stephen Johnson on Digital Photography. And I just got the book this week. Tremendous book. You can go find out more about his book at ondigitalphotography.com. Is that correct? That is correct. I have it written down here right on my computer.
Very good.
So, ondigitalphotography.com, Stephen Johnson's new book. Go check it out.
We've talked before today. Once again, we've given away a subscription to Layers Magazine. Layers Magazine has an accompanying website, strangely enough, called layersmagazine.com. And if you go there, among other things, I have added a series of tutorials out of my new book, Photoshop Finishing Touches. So you can check that out at layersmagazine.com.
Last but not least, Adobe Lightroom. Now, if Adobe Lightroom is now available for Macintosh and Windows, it is a wonderful workflow tool for photographers. And if you haven't seen it, basically it does a number of different things. There are 5 modules for the Macintosh version. There's 4 for the Windows now, but of course by the time it ships later this year, it will have them all. But you can go download Lightroom today, start playing with it and experimenting with it today for free. And in it, it lets you sort your images in a very, very brilliant way. It lets you process your images using Camera Raw. And actually, it has not only all the features of Photoshop Camera Raw, but features that aren't even in Adobe Camera Raw. It's got professional slideshow creation. It has about the best printing engine I've ever seen.
That's right.
The printing features are incredible, and built-in ways to get all your stuff to the web. Now, how do you learn about this program? You go to our Lightroom Learning Center. It's completely free. Tons of information. There's interviews, there's videos. Matt has done a bunch of stuff there as well. So go to photoshopuser.com, where you will find a direct link to the Lightroom Learning Center. It's right there in the little news section. Click on that, it'll take you right there. It has everything you want to know about Lightroom, plus links on how to download it right from Adobe. Really, really cool product. If you have not tried Lightroom, it will change the way you work. If you are a photographer, if you are a graphic designer, it will confuse you and make you uneasy. But if you are a photographer, you will fall in love with it. Check it out. Adobe Lightroom. Well, we've come to that very special time at the end of the show where Dave and I have a cup of coffee and we look back on the
Fondly.
trash that we created. Dave, do you have any parting notes for our fine, fine viewers?
All I can say, I do want to mention one thing. You mentioned Lightroom, and that fact is that it is a public beta, which means not only can you test it and try it out, but send your comments back to Adobe, and you're helping in the development of the new program, which is very cool.
We actually have a video clip of what Adobe does when they get your suggestions. They're all laughing. No, no, no. Hey, that's what's cool about it. The program keeps getting, they keep releasing new betas based on your comments, and it keeps getting better and better and better. So by the time it ships, we should all be just blacking out, because every beta is tremendously better than the one before. Well, guys, that's it for this episode of Adobe Photoshop TV. On behalf of myself and the missing Masclotkowski, who is somewhere rocking the house key, and Mr. Dave Cross,
Bye for now.
the Canadian boss. We'll see you guys next week right here on Adobe Photoshop TV. See you then.
Thanks for watching Adobe Photoshop TV. See you next week.